We're back. If you think you've heard a lot about Benghazi, you haven't seen nothing yet or heard nothing yet. As the Hillary Clinton presidential bid seems to be gearing up more and more, Republicans have indicated they intend to scream Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi at the top of their lungs every opportunity they get. Case in point, Rand Paul yesterday, speaking about foreign policy at the Citadel in South Carolina. He took this swipe at Secretary Clinton.
When Hillary Clinton was asked for more security, she turned the ambassador down. Under cross-examination, I asked her, did you read the cables? She said she never read any of the cables. That's her excuse. She says, don't blame me. Somebody beneath me should have been reading those cables. I find it a dereliction of duty. A clear dereliction of duty. She wants to blame it on somebody else. It's absolutely a responsibility. And her failure to provide our ambassador and his mission with adequate security should preclude Hillary Clinton from ever holding high office again.
Wow. Well, Senator Paul has made similar statements in the past, this time in the wake of repeated plagiarism controversies. The Kentucky senator followed through, by the way, with his pledge to add citations to his speeches and post them on his website. What citation does he use for this assertion, that when Hillary Clinton was asked for more security, she turned the ambassador down? It turns out it's an article in the Hill newspaper that actually seems to contradict his very statement. Here's part of that article. Quote, the report may have been overreached. The report may have overreached when it said it had evidence that Clinton had personally signed an April 2012 cable turning down then-Ambassador Jean Kretz's request for more security. All State Department cables from Washington bear the Secretary's automatic signature, the State Department said. In other words, facts aren't going to get in the way of a good political argument. Josh Rogan's a senior correspondent at Newsweek and the Daily Beast, and A.B. Stoddard is a columnist at the Hill. Josh and A.B., I just want to point out something. I know, as a lowly, not a lowly, but just another Peace Corps volunteer stuck out in Africa back in the 60s, every time a cable came to us, or back the other way, every time one came to us, I can tell you for sure, it had Rogers written on it as the return address. Secretary William Rogers was not talking to me, okay? That is what they say in cable, in the State Department cable language. Everything by law that comes out of Washington has the name of the Secretary of State right on it. It's never personal. And to say that that's evidence that Hillary Clinton had read the cables is ludicrous with any kind of investigation. Your thoughts?
Well, we see the evolution of the Benghazi story as certain people try to perpetuate it, go from an attack on Obama during the 2012 campaign to an attack on Susan Rice when she was up for Secretary of State to now an attack on Hillary Clinton. This could propel the Benghazi scandal, for those who are interested in doing that, well into 2016. That doesn't make it accurate. And the beauty of Rand Paul's new love of footnotes is that we can actually see where what he says doesn't match the reality. So the good news is he's not plagiarizing anymore. The bad news is his actual inaccuracies are out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, he's now footnoting his disasters. Anyway, this isn't the first time Republicans have mischaracterized Secretary Clinton's actions regarding Benghazi. Last month, Dick Cheney criticized her, taking comments she made completely out of context. Let's watch.
I think the Benghazi thing is one of the great, it's not just an embarrassment, it's a tragedy, because we lost 4 people that night. And what I always recall is her testimony saying, what difference does it make? And the fact of the matter is, it makes a huge difference. So she clearly wasn't hands-on, and now she doesn't want to be hands-on, and she's doing everything she can to avoid responsibility for what clearly, fell into her bailiwick.
Well, Cheney there implies Hillary Clinton was talking about the 4 dead people when she said what difference does it make. Actually, she was referring to Republican attacks on the talking points used by Susan Rice on Meet the Press that Sunday. Here's the full context so you can see it.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator.
A.B. Stoddard, your thoughts about that? That is like the stuff they did to Kerry, John Kerry, back during the SWIFT voting. They didn't like his attitude against the war, after the war, so they seem to be implying that he had done something wrong in his service record. This is conflation. It's the old trick that got us from a 9/11 into Iraq, combining or conflating 2 totally separate things. Hillary Clinton did not say her friend dying, Chris Stevens, what difference does it make that he died? She was saying, what difference does it make whether somebody on television said it began as a protest and turned into an attack, or began as an attack? attack. Now, that could be argued either way, whether she should have said that. But she wasn't talking about her friend Chris Stevens getting killed.
You're right. Taking things out of context, though, Chris, is one thing. I think that not all Republicans who are going to go after Hillary Clinton on the Benghazi episode are going to do what Vice President Cheney did in that interview. They're going to talk about the fact that she was Secretary of State and she's accountable for the attack before, during, and after. And even if she didn't sign cables that came from Chris Stevens, that she was friends with him and should have known, if she was doing her job correctly, that he needed more security. It is a good story for Republicans to excite donors now who believe that President Obama is essentially buried under the weight of Obamacare, and he's a lame duck anyway. They assume she is the Democratic nominee in waiting. They don't know who is going to be victor on their side in a very divided party facing the Republican primary process. So they're looking to undercut Hillary Clinton. And because she's Secretary of State, she owns that event, and she is accountable. She can say, we're going to follow the recommendations of the Accountability Review Board. We're going to learn the lessons. They're going to go after her, whoever the nominee is, likely, but they're certainly going to overplay it now because this is the beginning of positioning themselves with donors and supporters before their candidates in the early states.
Well, anyway, former Secretary, I hear all that, and I agree, you're right. That's the strategy here. Former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, a great guy. He served both President Obama and President George W. Bush. He defended the administration early this year from charges that they didn't do enough on the night of the attack. Is this strong enough evidence? Well, let's listen to Bob Gates.
Based on everything I've read, people really didn't know what was going on in Benghazi contemporaneously. And to send some small number of special forces or other troops in without knowing what the environment is, without knowing what the threat is, without having any intelligence in terms of what is actually going on the ground, I think would have been very dangerous. And personally, I would not have approved that because we just don't. It's sort of a cartoonish impression of military capabilities and military forces.
Let me go to Josh. How do we put this issue to bed, or how can it be put to bed? Is it possible that Hillary Clinton could say something that would allay the attacks on her, defend herself conclusively, that she did the best she could, certainly the night of the attack, to save those people?
Not only can we not put the issue to bed, it's going to be hard to have a serious discussion about some of the questions that are still unanswered. The bottom line here is that the Romney campaign made a decided effort to politicize this issue. Long gone are the days where politics ended at the water's edge, and that was perpetrated by people in Congress and now by senators who were up for election in 2014, including Lindsey Graham, ensuring that the issue will be then, and it'll go on to 2016.
I think it's time for the Clintons to reopen the war room. Anyway, thank you, Josh Rogan, and thank you, A.B. Stoddard. We'll be right back after this.